The price of freedom. Freedom isn't free. It never was. It never will be. It always costs. It never goes on sale. There's no discount for it. It may cause you to bruise your body or to bleed blood, to have a broken bone. It could cost you your life. That's the price of freedom.
I totally agree with you on that sentiment, and I hope that our audience has some resonance with Elmer's words. I think they're quite moving. And certainly our ancestors knew about the price of freedom when they fought against the British.
That is correct.
And our ancestors knew the price of freedom when they fought during the Civil War, World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, etc. Elmer and I were quite inspired by three very important words: impeach, convict, remove.
Impeach, convict, remove. That's ethical and it's in our Constitution.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think people are wondering, well, doesn't that seem a little bit, it's kind of harsh? Well, no, it isn't. Not under the circumstances. We are undergoing what others have called a hostile takeover of our government. We're being ignored. The Constitution is being violated. And so we had the opportunity, Elmer and I, to spend an hour and 20 minutes watching Lights On YouTube, hosted by Jessica Denson.
That's correct.
Last Friday, she had on her show Gabe Gabowit, who is one of the founding partners, along with his partner. Excuse me, I think I have to look at her name here. It's Kira. And the two of them came up with this idea for citizensimpeachment.com, and they have actually written articles of impeachment. And we would like to read the few of those for you to start with. Article 1, Tyranny. In his conduct of the office of President of the United States, Donald J. Trump has committed high crimes and misdemeanors in that he has, by his actions and statements, sought to establish himself as tyrant, dictator, and autocrat over the people of the United States, usurping unto himself the constitutional powers of Congress, the courts, and the states, and powers illegitimate and beyond the scope of lawful government altogether. He has claimed for himself absolute and arbitrary power, the ability to suspend laws at whim, and utterly disregard and betrayed his oath to faithfully execute the office of President of the United States, and to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. They go on to say, he has denied and violated the right of the people of the United States to free and fair elections, including by bribery of voters, fraud and extortion of election officials, harassment and intimidation of election workers, and unconstitutionally ordering interference with the lawful administration of elections. And one more paragraph I'll read, because it goes on quite a ways. He has denied and violated the right of the people of the United States to freedom of speech and of assembly, and to petition the government to redress of grievances by embarking on a wide-ranging censorship campaign to punish his political opponents, chill opposition, and illegally retaliate against the constitutionally protected speech, association, and expression. We would love to encourage everyone to repeat the mantra: impeach, convict, remove.
Impeach, convict, remove, over and over again. Let's spread it.
Yeah, Let's spread it to everyone.
Let's spread it to everyone.
Let's get it out there, folks. Every time you go to a protest or a rally, be sure at least one side of your sign says that. Exactly.
Let's get loud about it.
We need to repeat this 1 billion times or more, whatever it takes. Let's do what the right has taught us to do, because they've effectively gotten back into office a president who was definitely guilty of insurrection. It was proven by the January 6th committee. For those of you who actually watched all of the testimony that was given there, most of the testimony, 95% of it, was given by not just Republicans, but people who served in the White House at Trump's appointment.
They were members of his political family.
Yeah, and his political cabinet that he
That's
had
correct.
appointed. And of course, he had many people in various parts of the country who supported him all around in election boards and other places, in his conspiracy to get everyone to believe that even though his advisors, his closest people, his greatest supplicants and sycophants, if you will, the people who seemed to worship the ground upon which he was walking, they were frequently saying to everyone, hey, this guy can do no wrong, and they supported him in everything he did. And finally, when it came to the lies about the election being stolen in 2020, they had to say, I'm sorry, Mr. President, there is no evidence that didn't happen.
No proof at all.
We're talking about Bill Barr, his Secretary of State, and his Attorney General, forgive me. He was the Attorney General of the United States, appointed by Donald Trump, kind of hand-selected to replace Jeff Sessions and whatever his interim people were, because he was going to be an apologist for the president. He was going to do whatever the president said, and that was just a bridge too far for him at the end. And Christopher Krebs, who was his cybersecurity chief
at that time,
he said to Donald Trump and to the rest of us, American citizens, the 2020 election, in his words, were the freest and fairest election in U.S. history.
and he didn't have to tell that truth.
He didn't have to tell that truth. It was against his personal self-interest, and we can see now Trump is working hard to retaliate against him.
He's in danger, and those who differ with him are also in danger. It shouldn't be that way. We are Americans, and that's an example of our freedoms being robbed from us, and we got to watch that, because freedom is expensive.
I have to agree with that wholeheartedly. And, think about it, folks. If everybody starts cowering and capitulating as they used to do, let's say in the 1930s, Germany and Italy, or 1920s and 30s, Italy, because it got started a little earlier in fascism than the Germans did. People started capitulating and cowing and not challenging Adolf Hitler and Benito Mussolini. And the price that they paid was the entire takeover of their previously democratic systems.
Right.
Yeah.
That's an example of cowering and giving in and losing your freedom, which leads to losing your life.
Yeah. So that's what we need to recognize, and we also need to know over 50% of the United States of American voting citizens agree Donald Trump needs to be impeached. And what's the percentage of Republicans, Elmer? Do you remember?
Is it about 20%?
20% of Republicans in a recent poll said yes, they favor the impeachment of Donald Trump.
They're probably not MAGA Republicans, but they are Republicans.
They may have been,
We don't know.
some of them.
They are voters.
And I think as we keep going forward here and the president keeps piling on all of these egregious, illegal, absolutely preposterous things that he's doing, accepting a $400 million jet from the Qataris in the Middle East, going over, why isn't he dealing with our allies and saying, hey, how's everybody in England over here? Let's make a deal. And having them, work with him on something that's important. No, he goes to the people who have a great deal of individual powerful wealth. They've taken over their own countries as dictators and oligarchs. They're happy to say 400 million, we can easily afford that to keep you from putting sanctions and tariffs against our country. And, as a matter of fact, why don't you come over and build, we'll make a $5 billion investment in Saudi Arabia so that you can have some nice hotels that'll be great, and Dubai and Qatar and all of these Middle East countries, they're just piling on and this is just completely anti-constitutional, against the emoluments clause in the Constitution, stating that you cannot accept gifts from foreign sources.
I'm thinking,
as a
Mark,
president.
as we continue to discuss this, you're going to hear me say that some things are so, but not necessarily so.
What does that mean?
That simply means that on the normal or regular conventional type situations and presidencies, that wouldn't be ethical or even legal. But
Right.
with Donald Trump, seemingly everything goes. You said that we can't do that or he can't do that. But with him, based up to this point, it seems to me that he's able to do it and still remain president of the United States. How we got to that shape is many details.
And the only way, folks, that this is possible is that we must stand together as citizens. We must overwhelm all of our representatives in the Congress and the Senate with phone calls, letters, emails, and protests. And everything we do is important. It all counts unless we stop doing it. And if we're all doing it, there is not a potential for any forces of the United States under the direction of this corrupt president to stop us. They cannot stop us because there are way too many. The majority of Americans are overwhelming, and they're overwhelmingly in favor of impeachment, conviction, and removal of this president.
I would hope, trust, and pray that he would get the message when these demonstrations take place. I believe one, Mark, is planned for June, maybe
June 14th.
June 14th. I believe that's the birthday of the President of the United States, and
Something like that.
something very extensive is going to take place. It's going to be nationwide if the plans become reality on the birthday of the President of the United States.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that.
So I would like to bring us back a minute to the show on the Midas Touch Network, which I imagine some of you have heard of, at least if you're not watching it. They have about 5 million followers on YouTube. They're on Substack. They're using a platform called Patreon, and so a number of others. I think Blue Sky and whatever. But they're definitely on YouTube, and they have 5 million followers. And Jessica Denson's show on the Midas Touch Network on YouTube is called Lights On with Jessica Denson. And she is pointing out that it is up to us to frame the debate. Well, I submit that there is no debate. There's only an answer and a demand. Not a request, it's a demand of our representatives. Impeach, convict, remove.
Impeach, convict, remove. We owe it to ourselves.
It's got a nice rhythm to it. It makes a great chant. It's a great mantra. And even if you're not out protesting, demonstrating, rioting, and calling, just think those words in your head and share them every once in a while with your friends and family. Just say, oh, yeah, I was just thinking, impeach, convict, remove. Wouldn't that be something amazing? for us to accomplish as a citizenry of the United States to regain our country from this hostile takeover?
It's a part of the Constitution to recite that, make it a part of our culture, if I may. And
Yeah.
if we did that for the next 2 weeks, and on his birthday, we have the demonstrations that are planned across the United States of America, maybe, hopefully, that he will be getting the message about that time.
So Jessica Denson and Gabe Gabowit were inspiring us and encouraging all of us to call this phone number. The number is 202-224-3121. Let me just show you how easily that is in fact done.
Please say the name of the United States Senator or Representative that you are trying to reach.
Tom Cotton.
Connecting you to the office of Senator Tom Cotton.
Pretty good.
You have reached the D.C. office of Senator Tom Cotton. Please leave your name, number, and a brief message, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for your call.
Hello, my name is Mark London, and I would like to encourage Mr. Cotton to make a pledge now to impeach, convict, and remove the President of the United States, to show some loyalty to the Constitution and to grow a spine in light of this hostile takeover of our country and all the anti-constitutional, illegal, and unfortunate moves and disgraceful moves, intimidating and humiliating moves that the President is making on behalf of the United States citizens. Thank you. Again, appreciate you. Mark London. Can you imagine if, I don't know, 150 million Americans called that number to speak to your senator? And don't worry about just keeping it to folks that are on the Republican side, because let me quote what Gabe Gabowit said in his interview with Jessica Denson on Friday. He said, I have never seen, no, he said this, this is the most amount of effort I have ever seen by Democrats. And he was referring to their overwhelming discouragement of Shri Thanadar, who is the Democratic representative from
Michigan.
the 13th district in Michigan, who introduced articles of impeachment about 3.5 weeks ago or so, by invoking Article 9. And since he's done that, now anybody in Congress can just get up and say, I support the impeachment and I want to bring it to a vote. So we need to call every single representative in the country, I don't know, at least 10,000 times. What do you say, folks? If we have 120 million people calling, that should be very easy. And you can see how easy it was for me to make that phone call and to get through to the senator that I wanted. I had to wait a few minutes until they switched over, and then it rang a number of times before I got the connection. But you can get a connection to everyone in Congress.
Our congressmen must not be silenced on this. They must respond to what we have to say.
Yeah.
We do matter.
I can't see how they could possibly ignore us here, Elmer. I think they don't have a choice. No one in our government is going to have a choice, because we're not going to give up. The message is important.
It is important.
We are so concerned about this. This is a very, very serious time in our country. And it's the first time our generation has really had the opportunity to fight for all the freedoms and the rights that we do already have, and that this government is doing a lot to try to take them away from us. I guess we're about ready to wrap it up. So Elmer's got a little closing poem he'd like to share with us.
It says at the end of April, as April ends and May begins, what a blessed month it has been. The birds of a feather still flock together. They court and date. They even manage to contact and mate. They obey their Creator's will, although during life storms they sit still. So as April ends and May begins, with wedlock or no wedlock, they reproduce with no sin.
Yeah.
I like how that ended. I think it's appropriate for times like this.
And I love that this is coming from my devout Christian friend Elmer. I happen to be more agnostic and don't have a deep faith in Christian religion or any other specific religion.
But we
Although I
managed to
appreciate
be podcasting partners.
Well, and I love the fact that you brought up that the bees, the birds and the bees, if you will, are out there procreating without having a marriage license, and it's not sinful. All right.
It's necessary for the birds to follow the laws of nature at this time, regardless of whether we follow them or avoid them or live with them. The birds and the bees, they know no difference through the centuries. They still sing the same song on the same pitch.
Yeah, and I'm really appreciative of that, and I think that obeying the laws that we make for ourselves so that we can live together harmoniously and with a sense of safety and security.
Yes.
Because we can walk down the street, my friend Elmer and I can walk down the street here in town, and we're not afraid of being attacked because most people are very much law abiding, unlike the President of the United States, number 47. So, I kind of like the notion of 8647. I think a lot of you know what that means, even if Christy Nome doesn't know the definition. It means, throw them out. What's the mantra? Impeach.
Together.
Impeach, convict,
Convict,
remove. And keep coming back for more. Subscribe to our station. We'll see you next time, Elmer. Thank you.